So when I was a young lad, I had read all the Goosebump books and went looking for something to really get me going. Because if anybody's read Goosebumps, they're not particularly the scariest thing. I mean, they're good enough. I go looking and I find this book called Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. Ooh, that's promising a lot. So of course I check it out and I begin reading through it. Some of them pretty good. A lot of them pretty funny or bad. So we're going to read through a couple of my favorites, and I'm going to try and stay faithful to how I actually read them when I was in like sixth grade or something. So if it's not how you read it, it is what it is. I'm aware a movie came out about these. I actually haven't seen that movie. I haven't seen a movie in such a long time. Anyways, who am I? I don't know. Look at this channel. There's no one here. This is nothing. It's not a joke. I'm nothing right now. But you can call me David. So, we will get straight into one of my personal favorites, Me Tai Doty Walker, by some person a long time ago. But first, let's get it a little more scary in here. Bring the lights down. Yes, bring them down. Maybe a filter or something. I don't know. We're doing this off the cusp or the cuff. I don't know. I shouldn't say that phrase. I don't know how to say it. Anyways, on with the story. There was a haunted house where every night a bloody head fell down the chimney. At least that's what people said. So nobody would ever stay there overnight. Then a rich man offered $200 to whoever would do it. And a boy said he would try if he could have his dog with him. So it was all settled. The very next night, the boy went to the house with his dog. To make it more cheerful, he started a fire in the fireplace. Then he sat in front of the fire and waited, and his dog waited with him. For a while, nothing happened, but a little after midnight, he heard someone singing softly off in the woods. The singing sounded something like this. Me Tai Doty Walker. It's just someone singing, the boy told himself, but he was frightened. Then his dog answered the song. Softly and sadly it sang. Lynchy, Kinchy, Kali, Molly, Dingo, Dingo! The boy could not believe his ears. His dog had never uttered a word before. Then a few minutes later, he heard the singing again. Now it was closer and louder, but the words were the same. Me Tai Doty Walker. This time the boy tried to stop his dog from answering. He was afraid that whoever was singing would hear it and come for them. But his dog paid no attention, and again it sang. Lynchy, Kinchy, Kali, Molly, Dingo, Dingo! 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 A half an hour later, the boy heard the singing again. Now it was in the backyard, and the song was the same. Me Tai Doty Walker. Again, the boy tried to keep his dog quiet, but the dog sang out louder than ever. Lynchy, Kinchy, Kali, Molly, Dingo, Dingo! Dingo! Soon the boy heard the singing again. Now it was coming down the chimney. Me Tai Doty Walker. The dog sang right back. Lynchy, Kinchy, Kali, Molly, Dingo, Dingo! 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 Suddenly, a bloody head fell down the chimney. It missed the fire and landed right next to the dog. The dog took one look and keeled over, dead from fright. The head turned and stared at the boy, and slowly, it opens its mouth, and Now, I'm not just screaming, because I think it's fun. It's just a little fun, but it actually says here in the story, you're supposed to tell these kind of like around a campfire or something like that. Turn to one of your friends and scream. And considering I don't have anyone here, the mic is the best I got. So that's just how the story's told. There's a couple of them like that, but this one's my favorite with that type of twist, I guess. Homemade jump scares. What can you do? So after Meet Dodie Walker and I read it, I was very curious. How does other people sing this song? So I went and looked up an audiobook version of it, a man doing it, and I gotta say, I do not do it like he did. So if you're listening and that's just a big point of contingency for you, I apologize. That is how, when I was a kid, I read it, and it still makes sense to me now. It's very hard to say Lynchy, Kinchy, Collie, Molly, Dingo, Dingo, and keep it scary. You try to say Lynchy, Kinchy, Collie, Molly, Dingo, Dingo, and make that sound scary. So in my mind, I thought, let's make that last dingo like a shout. Like, oh my gosh, you're gonna give us away. There's this crazy thing in the woods coming after us, and you're shouting and getting it closer and closer to us. To me, that's scary. The way the other person and the other that I saw did it, that is not how they did it. So that it is what it is. Okay, we'll move on to the next one. Ted Martin and Sam Miller were good friends. They spent a lot of time together. On this particular night, they were sitting on a fence near the post office, talking about one thing and another. There was a field of turnips across the road. Suddenly, they saw something crawl out of the field and stand up. It looked like a man, but it was dark and it was hard to tell for sure. Then it was gone. But soon it appeared again, and it walked halfway across the road. Then it turned around and went back into the field. Then it came a third time and started toward them. By now Ted and Sam were scared, and they started running. But when they finally stopped, they decided they were being foolish. They weren't sure what had scared them, so they decided to go back and get a better look. Pretty soon they saw it, for it was coming to meet them. It was wearing black pants, a white shirt, and black suspenders. Sam said, "I'm going to try and touch it. Then we'll know if it's real." He walked up to it and peered into its face. It had bright, penetrating eyes sunk deep in its head. It looked like a skeleton. Ted took one look and screamed, and again he and Sam ran. But this time the skeleton followed them. When they got to Ted's house, they stood in the doorway and it watched. It stayed out in the road for a while. Then it disappeared. A year later, Ted got sick and died. Toward the end, Sam sat up with him every night. The night Ted died, Sam said he looked just like the skeleton. No jump scares on this one. Pretty short too. I really like the visual though. I'm gonna see what I can do to enhance, kind of show you guys what I imagine. But for imagery, pretty scary. And then we've also got this really great illustration that I'm gonna find out who made these. I mean, this really adds to the imagination when you're reading these, especially when you're in like 6th grade, which I think is like 11, 12, something like that. I don't know. It's been a long time since I've been in school. I don't remember those things. All right, this last one is called The Wendigo. And I particularly, dang, I cannot talk today. I really enjoy the North American folklore type monsters. And if you know what a Wendigo is and what it looks like, it's scary. So I would like to point out that in this particular story, multiple times the guide is referred to as an Indian. And I realize that these stories are passed down, but I hate to offend anybody and take away from the story. I'm going to just simply refer to them as native. That's it. Just want to explain that, and we'll go ahead and get started. A wealthy man wanted to go hunting in a part of northern Canada where few people had ever hunted. He traveled to a trading post and tried to find a guide to take him, but no one would do it. It was too dangerous, they said. Finally, he found a native who needed money badly, and he agreed to take him. The man's name was Defago. They made camp in the snow near a large frozen lake. For 3 days they hunted, but they had nothing to show for it. The third night, a windstorm came up. They lay in their tent listening to the wind howling in the trees, whipping back and forth. To see the storm better, the hunter opened the tent flap. What he saw startled him. There wasn't a breath of air stirring, and the trees were standing perfectly still. Yet he could hear the wind howling, and the more he listened, the more it sounded as if it was calling Defago's name. Defago. It called. I must be losing my mind, the hunter thought. But Defago had gotten out of his sleeping bag. He was huddled in a corner of the tent, his head buried in his arms. What's this all about? The hunter asked. It's nothing, Defago said. But the wind continued to call him, and Defago became more tense and more restless. It called. Suddenly, he jumped to his feet and began to run from the tent, but the hunter grabbed him and wrestled him to the ground. You can't leave me here, the hunter shouted. Then the wind called again, and Defago broke loose and ran into the darkness. The hunter could hear him screaming as he went, and again he cried, Oh, my feet! My burning feet of fire! Then his voice faded away, and the wind died down. At daybreak, the hunter followed Defago's tracks in the snow. They went through the woods, down toward the lake, then on to the ice. But soon he noticed something strange. The steps Defago had taken had gotten longer and longer. They were so long, no human could have taken them. It was as if something had helped him to hurry away. The hunter followed his tracks out into the middle of the lake, but there they disappeared. At first he thought Defago had fallen through the ice, but there wasn't any hole. Then he thought something had pulled him off the ice into the sky, but that made no sense. As he stood wondering what happened, the wind picked up again. Soon it was howling as if it had the night before. Then he heard Defago's voice. It was coming from up above. And again he heard Defago screaming, My feet! My fiery feet! But there was nothing to be seen. Now the hunter wanted to leave that place as fast as he could. He went back to camp and packed. Then he left some food for Defago and he started out. Weeks later, he reached civilization. The following year, he went back to hunt the area again. He went to the same trading post to look for a guide. The people there could not explain what had happened to Defago that night, but they had not seen him since. Maybe it was a Wendigo, one of them said as he laughed. It's supposed to come with the wind, and it drags you along at great speed until your feet are burned away. And more of you than that, then it carries you into the sky and it just drops you. It's just a crazy story. But that's what some of the natives say. A few days later, the hunter was at the trading post again. A man came in and sat by the fire. He had a blanket wrapped around him, and he wore his hat so you couldn't see his face. The hunter thought there was something familiar about him. He walked over and asked, Are you Defago? The native didn't answer. Do you know anything about him? No answer. He began to wonder if something was wrong, if the man needed help, but he couldn't see his face. "Are you all right?" he asked. No answer. To get a good look at him, he lifted his hat. Then he screamed. There was nothing under the hat but a pile of ashes. All right. That one it has a much quieter tone, but I like with the thing. I don't think I even said the name of that story. I enjoy the visuals of it, you know, when you're imagining it. If you've ever seen the Blair Witch Project, when they're in the tent and it's like patting on the tent and stuff, if you've ever been camping, if that happens to you, you're gonna die. You're done. Just the imagery of them just being in the tent and just hearing the wind calling his name, and then I don't know if you've seen a Wendigo before. Scary. They are scary looking. So really enjoyed that one. I like the visuals. We'll see what I can edit together. It's not like I'm some big corporation here. It's literally just me. So I'm gonna do the best I can to enhance the story with the imagery, with all of it. I'm gonna do the best I can. So that'll do it for this time. Comment down below any of your favorite stories, and I might do a part 2 for this and just keep it going. If you made it this far, thank you very much for watching. Subscribe if you want to, like if you want to. If you didn't like it, smash that dislike button, and be thankful you didn't have to pay for this. It was completely free, and ask yourself, why am I still here? Anyways, thank you very much, guys, and we'll see you later. Goodbye. Toward the end, Sam sat up every night. Toward the end, Sam sat up every... The hunter followed Defago to get a good look at him. He lifted the Indian... Oh.